Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Scott Dugan, and in this broadcast, we'll be talking about session view. And I'm going to begin by giving you a general overview of session view, some of the unique features it has, and then we'll start moving towards how to use it in a live environment. So on stage, I would say using it to run tracks, and how we can set up session view, to organize it using MIDI mapping, stuff like that, to get a lot out of session view. And at any time, if you have any questions, please leave a comment, and I will be more than happy to answer as much as I can. Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Scott Dugan. So today, let's start off. One second, let me mute this. Here we go. All right. All right, so we have session view here, and forgive me if everyone here is familiar with session view, but in Ableton Live, there are two different views. We have session view, which is this one here. By clicking in the top right or hitting tab, we can go over to arrangement view. And arrangement view is the typical linear playback that any DAW has, any recording software has, GarageBand, Pro Tools, you name it. And let me see here. Looks like something's going on. I'm not able to see my screen. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. Ah, there we go. Okay, apologize. There we go. Okay, so we have arrangement view, which is this view here. Go linearly across, so time goes, so goes what we hear. Then we have session view, and session view is really unique. We have the ability to put ideas in these little clip holders here and launch them whenever we want. And the cool thing is it all lines up to the bar or the downbeat. And if we want to launch a bunch of clips at the same time, we can use a scene launch over on the right. So let me show you exactly how that works. I'm going to open up the browser, and I have a bunch of different tracks that I've made or used or been given, and I can open these up, search my heart by Hillsong. So what I did here was I just tracked it normally how I would, use some plugins, use some real hardware, and created an arrangement. And what I want to do is get this into session view so I can play this on the stage and make it nice and tidy. Some guys like to use arrangement view to play on stage. I personally like session view. I think you can see a lot more. We can go down the line and not have to worry about jumping back and forth in time. And we also have some tricks when it comes to letting tracks overlap. So the tail of a pad or something like that might hang over when we start our second song, stuff like that. Also, as a keyboard player, I use session view to host my soft synths. So I can do both tracks and soft synths in session view. Anyways, enough talking. Let's grab all of these different clips. So I'm just holding shift and grabbing them all. And now Live 9 has this cool new feature. If we go to create and we go to consolidate time to new scene, what it's going to do is grab all of these tracks in the time that I've selected, and it's going to move it over into session view for me. Now, since there are a lot of tracks, it's taken a while, but it should move quickly here. Hey Brent, thanks for the shout out. Thanks for being with us. If you guys have any questions already, go ahead and leave a comment, and I'll start taking a look at those. And the cool thing also with Live 9 as well is that any automation that you've put into arrangement view will copy over into session view. Now in Live 8, there is a really bad thing when it came to volume automation. Whenever we write a song, say we want to fade in some strings or fade in a synth, and we drew that in with volume automation. If we move these clips over to session view, that automation would disappear. But now in 9, any automation will go back and forth between both views. And I'll get to that in just a second. I'm trying to kill time while this consolidating is happening. What else? Yeah. Once we get into session view, we can do some recording, we can do some automation, recording even, and we can even split up sections, say chorus, verse, bridge, and a lot of guys like to launch songs that way, have manual control over how many choruses you do, how many verses you do, and when you go to the next section of the song. And then I will show you a set that a church in Atlanta here uses. I play at some North Point campuses, and one of their campuses, Buckhead Church, I've helped make one of their supersets. So basically every track that they use on stage has been put together into what I would call a superset. And that way, on any given Sunday, you can just drag up the clips and the scene to the very top and launch whenever you want. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second here as well. Another question that some guys have is, if we're in session view, how do we scrub forward? So we want to rehearse just the bridge. How do we get to just the bridge in session view? And we'll go over that too. And that's one big reason why guys default to arrangement view, the linear view that we're looking at right now, is being able to jump back and forth during rehearsal. And we can do that just fine in arrangement in session view. So here we go, consolidating. Basically what's happening, why it's taking so long, each one of these clips, each one of these colored regions, if you will, is actually being rebounced. A new audio file is being created and being written to the hard drive. So that's why it's taken so long. All right, here we go. And we're done. Okay, so I'm going to hit Tab. And now all of the clips that we just consolidated, everything that we selected, this time that we selected, has now been moved over into arrangement view for us. Now we can go section by section as well. So if we wanted to just do, say, the chorus or the intro, and just the verse, or just the bridge or whatever. So we can do it that way as well. But enough with arrangement view, let's go back to session view. All right, here we go. So in session view, only one clip can be played at a time. So for example, if I launch a piano clip here, let's make sure everything's stopped. We'll do stop all clips here. And then I just want to launch my piano clip. If I double click on it, I can go down to detail view and see exactly what's in that clip. And if I want to, I can kind of fast forward. There it is. So what happens if I launch clip number 2? So first clip stopped, and the second clip began to play. Now some guys, this is very frustrating, but once you learn to embrace it, it's actually really cool, because we have song number 1, pretend, at the very top. We have song number 2 right below it. And when we're done with song number 1, we just launch song number 2. And we launched one clip individually with our mouse click here on the play button. We can also launch an entire scene, so launch all of these clips at once. We can do that by clicking this scene launch button here, or If it's selected, hitting enter. And there is Search My Heart. And we're off to the races. In order to get this all to line up, notice there is some information here on the right. What I've done is I've labeled it Search My Heart. I've done that by simply right-clicking or Apple R, and that allows me to rename it. So Search My Heart. Sometimes I'll even put the key of the song, so I'll do C, and I'll type in 132 BPM, and what that does is force Live to change the tempo to 132 right on scene launch. So if this was 120, I launched that scene, we've immediately gone to 132, and that's because I put 132 BPM. We can also make sure that we're in the correct time signature. So if this song is in 4/4, we can do space 4/4, and that will update our time signature as well. Now, if you want to, you can quickly go into, if you want to double time with your click, or if you want to subdivide your click, we can just hit rename and then do 8/8. There's a really fast way to subdivide your click. So if you're not familiar with the music theory part of that, the first number means there are 8 beats in a measure, and the second number below that determines what we're counting as a beat. So in this case, we have 8 beats per measure, and we're counting as an eighth note as a beat. If we go back to 4/4, that means we have 4 beats in a measure, and 1 beat is a quarter note. So that's how we can quickly go to a subdivision, or we could even make this 3/4, whatever you want to do. All right, so next let's do a simple automation. Let's say we have these strings. I can double click, and we want these to fade out a little quicker. Say there's a double chorus, and we want these to fade out in the middle of the chorus so they don't hang out so long at the end of the song. Well, it's really easy. This is really cool. So all we have to do is go to our envelopes tab here, all right, and then click on the parameter that we want to automate. So we click on panning, and now we have a pan automation lane here, or an envelope. If we want to do volume, just click on the volume, and now we can draw it in. So starting at measure 113, we'll just drag that down to, say, measure 119. And if I hit play right at measure 113, we can see that volume being automated and just fading out. If we want all those strings to fade out, we'll just select that, hit Command-C to copy, go to the viola at 113, and hit paste. Oh, we have to make sure we have envelopes selected, and then the right parameter. So 113, paste, and there is fade out for viola. Go to the cello. We want to automate our volume. 113, paste. There we go. So 113, all of our strings will begin to fade out. Cool? So one of the questions that a lot of people have is, well, let's say we want to get to measure 113 in session view. If I use the scrub tool, that little speaker icon, I click, only one of these tracks is going to play back wherever I click down the bottom in detail view. How do we get all tracks to line up at the same time in detail view? It's really easy. All we have to do is scrub in our transport bar up here at the top. See, I'm just clicking and holding and scrolling up. Now I'm at measure 110, hit play. Oh, you know what? I have to hit play first. We can just scrub forward. And now all tracks are playing at the same place halfway through our song. And we can see the fade out begin to happen here. There's our fade out. Okay. See what's going on here. There we go. Now the cool thing is this automation to fade out for our 3 string tracks. Now watch what happens when I click scene number 2. We did not put any automation into the clips in scene number 2. So watch what happens. Hit play, launch the scene. The automation has disappeared, it's no longer pink, and we're at full volume. So we don't have to worry about you know, applying automation to certain clips and then messing up other clips. If we want to balance our clips, so say something in our first scene is way loud and something right below it in the same track is way soft, we can try and, you know, pretend to use the track volume to even those out. It's not going to really work. What you need to do is go down into the sample box here and use clip gain. So before you, when you pick your set and before you go out on stage, take a listen and make sure that everything in the same track is at equal volume or where you want it to be as far as where you want it to be mixed. So if you want all of the piano tracks or stems to be at the same volume, take a listen and make sure they are the same volume. And write them down here with your clip gain. That way your front of house guy is not going to be, you know, having to do a finger dance and fix, you know, these crazy volumes that are way out of proportion. Let's see, we have a question that says, can you make automation, can you make automations over arm button? I'm sorry, could you please try and clarify? Are you asking if I can arm and record in automation as we go? I'm thinking that's what you mean, but could you just clarify? And I'll be happy to answer that question for sure. All right, so let's go back to our automation. Another cool thing is, you know, this kind of goes more in depth with, say, with DJing or, you know, more towards the band stuff. If you want to do some effects, we can actually, say on the piano, if I double click on the track header, I can insert an effect. Let's go to just something very simple like a delay. So a simple delay, drag that onto my piano track. And let's say at the end of the song, I just want to add some delay, kind of give it some tail. That way it doesn't just hard stop maybe. What I can do is the same thing. Go back to my clip, my envelope, and now I'm going to flip back over, and I can do that quickly by Shift-Tab, or I can use at the very bottom right, I go back and forth between Device View and Detail View. So I'm going to click on my wet dry and head back over, and now we have an automation lane for that wet dry mix. So let's say the last note I want to kind of delay out. I can do one of these things, drop it down to 0 so I have no delay at the first part of the song, and then use my pencil tool and just draw in something like that. So now when I get chugging along to the very end of the song, let's see if we can hear that. We have some delay going on, and then remember when I launch my second scene, if I made sure to set this up correctly, drop down the automation, and now our delay is at 0% and it's not going to go up unless we draw the automation in. So it's a very nice way to bring over some of our mixing, some of our creative elements, and not have to you know, rebounce it or anything like that. We can actually add these elements in real time on stage if we want. Hey, we have an idea. Let's try this. We can try that. Something like that. Another question is, how do we do an edit real fast? So let's say we want to cut out a section of a song. This might be going more into arrangement view, but we'll hit it real fast. So what I would do, say we have an extra chorus back here somewhere. We're going to select the time of the extra chorus. We just have pretend 4 bars. And then the shortcut on a Mac is Command-Shift-Delete. And that's just deleting time. And then what I would do is, again, select all the time we want to use, missing that extra chorus, and do that consolidate time to new scene again, which is going to pop it back over into session view, and we have our updated version or updated arrangement. All right, so the question was, I got it right. The red button, solo cue, and oh, can I automate those 2 buttons? Okay, I think that's what you're asking. I can't automate solo and record, but I can automate the mute button. So if we want to go back over here, we can automate the mute button or activator button. We can see how this automation lane is going up and down. So down for off, up for on. So here we have this section of the song automated to be on, and this section of our clip or song to be automated off. So yeah, we can do that for sure. We could also, limit how much of the track we play. So if we notice how much of the clip we play. So if we look at the very beginning, we have like a play start here. Above that we have a loop bracket. We won't look at that for right now, but this is going to show us where the clip begins. So measure 1, measure 5, it will begin playing there. The loop bracket tells us what section of the song to loop. So if I did that, well, let's do this. The clip will begin at measure 1. It'll tick, tick, tick along. It'll get to measure 9, keep going. When it gets to measure 33, it'll go back to measure 9 and begin looping. And in order for this to happen, loop has to be turned on. So turned off, what will happen is I'll look at the start position, and I will look at the end position here. So set to measure 37 with loop turned off. The clip will begin, play, play, play. When it gets here, it will stop. With loop turned on, it will begin here, go, go, go to measure 33, and then loop this selected time. And that's really cool for specifically loops. We can have a count in. So if we want to do let's see if we can find a loop here. We'll just pretend. So pretend we have a couple bars of loop. It's like a tambourine, whatever you want. But we want a 2-bar or 1-bar count in. We could do something like this. We have our 2-bar count in, and then it will loop this section of our clip or our track over and over again until we stop it. All right, let's see here. All right, so we have a track here that we've kind of chopped up. We've gone over, if we want to section this out, we can select time and do that consolidate to new scene again. And we can go chorus, verse, verse, chorus, chorus, bridge. We can section them out that way if we want to. All right, so how do we launch those? How do we get around this set while we're performing? So let's bring in, let me back up again. Let's say we want to create one of these sets, okay? All we have to do is save our songs exactly as we like them. So for example, this one I've labeled very beautifully. It's color-coded even, and I'm just going to delete some extra stuff. There we go. I can go back over to arrangement view, and I can actually delete all this. I don't want anything in arrangement view. And the magic of Ableton, everything's still set over in session view. Now, I'm going to save this. Let's pretend, go File, Save As. I saved it as Search My Heart in C at 132 BPM, 4/4. And I've saved all of my tracks to one folder called Tracks. So here they are. And here's my organizational, how I remember it and how I organize. track name, the key it's in, the BPM, and then if it's a weird time signature, I put that in. So everything that doesn't have a time signature is 4/4, and you can see like Forever Rain, I've subdivided. So it's at 83 BPM. It's at 83 BPM, but I want a subdivision since 83 is so slow. Now watch this. All I have to do to make a set is navigate to this folder in my browser, and then drag in the ALS, or Ableton Live set file. If I go and show this to you in the Finder, it looks something like this. So I have all of these projects saved, okay, and some of them I've even saved, if I used Reason to make some sounds, I saved that in there too. But this is exactly the same, just looking at it in the operating system browser and then Ableton's browser. Okay, so all I have to do, say my first song is Search My Heart, my second song is Forever Rain. I just drag that ALS in, and I might have to, yeah, okay. So in order for this to work, I have to create some new tracks. Let's see what I have here. I have 1, 2, 3 audio tracks and a couple MIDI tracks. So what I'm going to do, let's pick another one just because I don't want to do MIDI tracks right now. Let's do maybe Furious. There we go. So I drug it into an empty spot here. And what's going to happen is we're going to get new tracks for each one of those clips. And if I want to, I can see, well, this is the count. Let's drag this over to the Q track. This is a pulsy type sound. Well, it's MIDI, so we can't do that. Let's see, everything's MIDI. Let's see here. What we could do is, okay, so here's a problem. Let's say we want to consolidate this a little bit, and we don't want to be triggering this plugin in real time. What we can do is hit freeze. Okay, this is going to render this down into audio. So we have a question. I have my audio output set to external out on each of the tracks with the click cues coming out of 1 and the rest of my clips coming down 2. Okay, is there a way to compress the external output in order to even the clip volumes out without having to adjust individual clips? That's a great question. And I actually had that planned. We will write that down just in case. But what I would suggest, if you're only compressing by maybe 3 or 4 dB at most, you can probably get away with it. But if you have to compress, beyond that to get them to even out, you're gonna obviously hear that compression quite a bit. So you can put a compressor on there just to make, just to do some very gentle compressing, and that works great. But if it's something crazy, difference in volume, just use that clip gain and manually do it. That way you not have to hear that compression and really affect the signal. But we'll get to that in just a second. So here we have that clip has been bounced basically down to real audio. And we can actually see that if we drag it onto a new clip. So here, oh, come on. I need an audio track. There we go. So here we have a render or a bounce of whatever I did with the MIDI that was triggering that plugin. So we see it. There it is. That's a fast way to move it from a MIDI information triggering a plugin, and that could be third party or anything in the browser. And I've just bounced it down to real audio, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute tops. I could do that with my ARP2, my ARP1, and do the same thing, just kind of drag it and organize it. Because I want to take, my goal is to take all these different tracks and categorize them similarly. So anything piano, I want down a piano line. Anything patty or synthy, I want down, a pulse or a synth line. Or anything, a lead that my front of house guy needs to push during a chorus or something like that, I want that down a certain line. because what I like to do is give my front of house guy as many options as possible, or as much control as possible. So if I use an interface, I can send him tons and tons of tracks or channels. So I could send him up to 30 or 15 stereo stems, and now my front of house guy can mix the pianos separately from, the synths. And a lot of guys, you can't do that, but that's what I like to do, and that's why I separate them out. You can also mix them individually when you're at rehearsal. So you get to rehearsal and you say, well, the Celeste is way too hot. If we had bounced it down all to one track back in the studio, we can't separate them out and mix them on stage during rehearsal. But in this case, I could say, well, okay, let's turn the Celeste down this way if it's just one track, or if it's just this one that's too hot, the one we just froze and moved over, we can now gain that down. We have complete control over all of our different all of our tracks and parts. Okay, cool, Christopher. All right, so what's next? Oh yeah, so we brought in some sets, and we can start organizing our weekly playlist or our weekly set list from our browser. So let's say I want MIDI to save. I drag these in. Okay. I have some drums, I have some arps, and I can start consolidating. I can leave it giant and huge like this if I wanted to, and just kind of do this kind of a thing, just kind of fold them down. But I like to have everything in the same track, and I'll get to why in just a second. All right, so at this point, let's open up this giant superset, if you will. All right. All right, here we go. So let's take a look at this for a second. Fold some stuff away so we can really see it. Get rid of my in and out section, my sends, my returns. There we go. So here we go. This is pretty overwhelming, but let's look at it by color. We have some clicks, we have some counts, and we have the demo song. So if we're at rehearsal, the demo song is always there, ready to be played in rehearsal in case, the keyboard player forgot the part or whatever. Drummer didn't learn it, whatever. All of our synth tracks are here in yellow. Anything lead is here in blue. Any bass parts, percussion loops, etc. And it goes on. BGVs, electric. And there are a lot of Christmas songs in here too. So there are some weird tracks in here. Anyways, notice, like say percussion. These are all. That's a tambourine. That looks like a tambourine. Jingle bells. That looks like a shaker. So everything in this percussion line is being sent to my front of house guy. Everything in orange is being sent to my front of house guy in its single track. So he knows exactly which fader to go to if the percussion is too loud or too soft, and he can also add effects differently to it. So you're going to affect a shaker way different than you would a lead synth. A shaker you want to be percussive, so you're going to compress it different than if you were to compress a lead line or a pad. And it just gives him, it allows him to do his job. He's hired, he's been there, he is there to mix and make it sound good, and we give him all these separate tracks. Now, of course, I know a lot of guys can't do that. So in a perfect world, this is where we would go to. All right, so back to Christopher's question, which is, can I, basically, you can read it, but how can I add effects, in instance, to an external output? Well, you can't. But what we can do is use a bus to submix. So don't freak out. What I'm going to do is show the sends and show the returns. Okay? And I'll show the I/O. Just so we have everything. So what we've done here is set every single track, every single one, to sends only as a destination. So it's not going to master, the master output. It's not going to an external output. It's only going to the sends. Okay? Now, my return tracks over here have, well, if I was plugged in, have the external outputs configured. All right. So what I would do, A is going down 1 and 2, B is going down 3 and 4, C is going down 5 and 6, etc. Then I have D. We use D as like a mono source, so whether that be a BGV or a sub bass or something that can be mono and sounds good still. And then 8 is a click or then the cue track. And we'll get to this monitor F in just a second. So here's what we've done. I've gone to all of my synth tracks, and I've sent them only to returns A. Goes to A, gets submixed, and then it goes out of external 1 and 2. Christopher, in your case, we would make this say external out 2. Okay? And what we can do is put an effect on this return track. In your case, it would be something like, say, the glue compressor. Nice, gentle compressor. Okay, something like this. And now all of these synth lines that are being sent to return A will have this compressor applied to them before it goes out of 1 and 2. So, oh, there's my wife. So in your case, we make this 1 and 2, or I'm sorry, we make this external 2, and then what I've done is I've made, say, my MIDI and my counts going out of E, and E is going out of 8, and you can set that to 1. So you have your left and right clicks and tracks, and we can compress that too. So here is, for any of you guys using external interfaces like I am, if I pull that interface out and I only have my laptop speakers, well, these aren't going to be able to be heard. I only have external out 1 and 2, my left and right computer speaker. I can't hear all these. Now the first thing we might want to do is change all of these to master output or external out 1 and 2 and go in and manually do this, or come in here and change all of my sends, turn on A so I can hear out of 1 and 2. Well, that takes a lot of time to undo. So what I've done is I've created a, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bus, and this is kind of my monitoring bus. So everything that's not going down 1 and 2 already, like synth and lead, we'll be able to hear since out of 1 and 2. So anything that's not going down 1 and 2, say all the FX, see the click stuff, I've turned up send F. Okay, so anything that's not coming down 1 and 2 again, everything that's not being sent to A, has F turned up, and F is going out of 1 and 2. So with just my computer monitors, the interface has been unplugged, which means I can't hear these sends at all because my laptop doesn't have 3 through 8. All I have to do now is turn on F, and everything going out of 3 through 8 now gets fed through F. I could do this another way. I could do it this way, activate send, and do it from here as well. That'd be a lot faster. But basically, this is my monitoring when it's just my laptop. When I get to the stage, I just mute it or disable it, and now all of my routing is back in order because my interface is plugged in again. So I hope that makes sense. It takes a little bit of time to set up, but allows you, like Christopher wanted to do, is view and monitor my submix before it goes to my external out. So I can actually see here if it's being clipped. If it's clipped, I can adjust my volume of everything going down 1 and 2, and I can add effects if I want to. I can compress and kind of get stuff a little even. Let's see if we have a question. How do you play transitions through songs? That's a great question. So let's go back to our superset here. And let's try and find one that has a tail at the end. So this one has a nice long tail at the end. Okay, you just paid it all. We kind of have this big bridge here. We have this, down chorusy type feel, and then we have this long tail for a down chorus, like just piano or pad or just acoustic guitar or something like that. Okay, and I want, where'd it go? Coplay, here we go. I want to be able to launch the next song in my set and not have that tail cut off. I want there to be an overlap. I want that transition to be smooth. Right now, if I launch this scene, we can hear it here. And if I launch song number 2, it just cuts out. I don't want that. What I can do is just remove this stop button. Remove stop button. I just right-clicked. The shortcut is Command E. And now when I launch this first song, and I launch song number 2, this clip continues to play out, and the next scene or the next song begins to play. Now, if we had a bunch of tracks, so if we were going from this song to this song, all we have to do is stagger them. So we just move this one over here, the next one here, the next one here, and remove these stop buttons. Like that. And that allows the tail to continue on as we launch the next song. So I hope that's answered your question. Let's see. Okay, cool. Now just be careful, because if we're rehearsing and we launch song number 1, which is, say, Joy to the World, and let's get rid of some of these other ones just for now. We can just do a delete. Come on, buddy. Got a little, there we go. Don't want the beach ball of death, do we? There we go. Let's see here. So all I'm doing is selecting one, holding shift, selecting the top one, hitting delete. And I can rearrange these by clicking and dragging them down. I can copy paste, I can duplicate. I can insert, Command I can insert a blank scene. I mean, just like anything you do in a word processor, you can do with a scene or a clip. We could duplicate these down, copy paste, anything. All right, so here's how we stagger. We have the stop button removed under this clip, and back and forth. And like I said before, if we're rehearsing, just be careful, because if we go from one song in the middle to the next song, it's not going to stop. We have to either hit the stop button here or hit the stop all clips here. Hope that makes sense for you guys. All right, what's next? Let's see what question. Okay, great. I'm glad I could answer those questions for you guys. Next, let's take a look at the click and the cue tracks, or a count off. So, I absolutely hate, there's nothing I hate more than a nice, beautiful worship song that begins soft and gentle. And what do we have to do to get everyone to start at the same time? The drummer has to click the sticks, or has to count off, or has to hit the hi-hat. I hate it. It just kills the mood immediately. So we always have a count in unless we don't have a click or don't have any tracks. But even if we don't have any tracks, there's usually a count in with the metronome. And we do this with a MIDI track and a MIDI clip. And the reason why is because if we were to chord my vocal saying 1, 2, 3, 4, which I've done, and use an audio file, if we start changing the BPM, that audio file is either going to be stretched or compressed. And it's usually okay, but sometimes it kind of gets, it sounds weird. So what we do is use MIDI clips. And I've taken those samples and I've put them into a drum rack or something along those lines. And we can use a drum rack, or we can use a sampler, which we have here. And I've drugged those samples, so just 1, and we've drugged that in here to 1. 2, 3, 4. And I have a cowbell. Some guys, like some drummers or music or worship leaders, like a cowbell sound. Some of them like the MPC sound, and some of them like the Ableton sound. So we could actually load those all in here. And if we were to use, and then we use a MIDI clip, something like this, to trigger those different samples. So here we have MIDI clips triggering 1, 2, 3, 4. And this allows us to hear those samples the same way every time. We're not going to have that time-stretched sound or feel when we change BPM. This also allows us to, we can reserve CPU and file size or the size of our set. If we were to render out a click for the entire song, for every song, that's a WAV file. That's, maybe half a gig. Half the gig times 30 is 15 gigs of just a click. If we use a MIDI track with a MIDI clip triggering one sample, that's probably what, 10 megs that's being triggered for every song. So we can save on space as well. All right. So that's how I use a count-in and use a click. Now, another question I saw on the forum the other day was, what about a song that changes tempos or time signatures or something like that? In that case, I would just completely render out the entire click with the counts and then drop that in and use it. And that's what this track is for. We have our two MIDI tracks triggering stuff, and then we have another count track that's audio that we would dump in the time signature change or BPM change. And if I go back to my giant set here, we can actually see that. There we go. Let's fold some stuff down. So what I've done here is we have, MIDI, 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 MIDI. We can hide some of this. Sends, return. There we go. And then here we have a song that somehow changes BPM or it's wacky. And then here is my rendered down or my bounce down count and my click. So here we can see some counts and then my click. We've actually added a tone, a pitch reference, because this song was started a cappella. So we've put in that pitch tone, that pitch reference as well. All right, let's see if any questions. No, cool. Let's chug along. About 10 more minutes, guys. All right. Let's go to MIDI mapping. All right. So this is quite overwhelming, and like before, we can drag our songs to the top. So let's say we're going to go. Let's say it's Christmas. Joy to the World, Christmas This Year, and Carol of the Bells. Right? We can drag those all to the top. If we wanted to, we could delete these. There's our set. We can go File, Save As, and now name it, Buckhead Church 8/17/2014. Okay. Now a lot of guys, say in the churches that I play with, sometimes a keyboard player will trigger the clips and the tracks. And sometimes a drummer will trigger the clips and the tracks. Just kind of depends on if there's a music director who's a keyboard player, or like Matt McCoy will use a loop to miss and trigger loops that way as well from the very front of the stage. And in order to do that hands-free without reaching over and checking our email and pushing buttons on our laptop during the set, we have to do some MIDI mapping. So you can get like a trigger finger. You could get an SPDS. You can use an APC40, APC20, a loop to miss. You can use any type of MIDI controller. Drummers really like that SPDS, or the big pads I can hit with a drumstick. And then all we have to do is plug it in, make sure it's turned on in live under the preferences. So here, let's pretend I'm using, let's pretend this is the SPDS input. We just have to make sure remote is turned on for that MIDI controller. With remote turned on, we can go into MIDI map mode. Okay? Now everything in purple can be mapped to my MIDI controller. And notice some things are only viewable in MIDI and key map mode. So look at the stop clips button down here and the stop all. If I go into MIDI map mode, the shortcut is Command M on a Mac. Look, there are some additional features down here. We have these guys down here. This is really cool. So in an SPDS, there are, what is it? I'm guessing it's 4x4 pads. What is it? I'm guessing 8x2 maybe? I don't remember. I'm sorry. Anyways, we can map a separate different pad, put some gaff tape on there, and draw in with, you know, a glow-in-the-dark marker or whatever. Put some glow-in-the-dark gaff tape on there, and map one button to play. Okay, map one button to up, one button to down, and then I'm going to map one button to like an emergency stop. So stop all clips. Okay, I can also map a button to my metronome up here. All right, so get out of MIDI map mode, and now with my MIDI controller, I can go down, 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 select the clip, I can hit play. If I have to, I can do an emergency stop all clips. Okay, stop all clips. I can turn the metronome on and off. And that gives your drummer the ability to not have to put their stick down, not have to do some crazy weird thing with their hands to reach over to a laptop. We can also do this with a typing keyboard as well. Or what I was using was a little teeny Axiom controller with 2 octaves. So I could actually, if I wanted to, I could manually map these songs too. So let's say go into MIDI map mode, and C, middle C, is my first song. Now C sharp is my second song, and D is my third song. So I can do it that way too. I can go up and down through my set list, or if I know all I want for Christmas, I can hit C and launch that immediately. So you have, with a MIDI controller, you have complete, like, it's way faster. Trust me, it's way better than using a mouse or using the arrow keys, trying to put down a drumstick. It's tremendous. The other thing we could do is this little number guy right here. We can map this to a continuous control, like so a potentiometer, a fader. There are some cool MIDI controllers as just a dial. And if I do that, let's see if I can map that to a mod wheel. Now watch what happens. Using my mod wheel, I can go up and down this set really fast. And that works tremendously well with this huge, huge, huge set. You know, some guys will, in more of the spontaneous type churches, you know, the worship leader will just call out a song out of the blue, and you have 3 seconds to pick something. Sends, returns. There we go. Let's go back into MIDI map mode, map that to our mod wheel. Now watch this. I can just go, I can fly through these. And then maybe do up, up, down, down to get to the very specific one and launch it. So going from the very bottom of the set to the top of the set takes 30 seconds, up, up, launch. Not 30, 3 seconds, maybe tops. So that's why I love session view, because imagine trying to put all of these songs in arrangement view and navigating. I think it would be a nightmare. And we can even fold this down even more and get all of our songs looking at them at the same time. Let's see if we have any questions. Nope. Pitch reference. Yeah, pitch reference is awesome. It's a good little trick. Let's see here. That was MIDI map mode. The last thing I want to talk about is kind of like a spontaneous type of a thing. So let's go back to, let's say, let's see here. God is for us. Let's do that one. And let's grab a perk. Let's just do this. Now there's no percussion in this one, but we'll just use it for demo. And we have, just say song 2, song 3, song 4. Okay. And let's insert 2 more at the bottom. Okay, cool. So now let's pretend that this is a tambo track, and it might be. And let's grab a couple bars. This is not going to be perfect, but we're just going to select, say, 2 bars of tambourine. Let's pretend. I'm going to hit Command L to loop that section of the song. Okay, see we have that loop bracket that has now restrained itself to those 2 bars. And let's say I want this tambourine to come in and out whenever I want. I want to hit a button on, or hit a pad on my SPDS, and I want this tambourine to come in. I want to hit the pad again and the tambourine to come out, or go out. And that way I can do it whenever I want. I don't have to have a tambourine track. I can just have it come in any song, anywhere, anytime, and it'll be in time because it is warped. All right? So I'm going to launch song number 1. It's going to go, and notice it's not being launched here. What I need to do is change the launch mode, the launch mode from trigger to toggle. So, this is going a little deep. Trigger means whenever I launch a clip, it will begin, the clip will start, and I have to hit a stop button for that clip to stop. And that stop button can be here in the track, it can be at the very bottom of the track, or it can be a stop all clips button in the right. That's trigger mode. If I move this to toggle, and this is really cool, I can actually launch a clip by pushing the play button, and I can stop that same clip by hitting the play button again. So I hit play, it will come in time, hit it again, and it will come out in time. So with my global quantize set to a bar, this clip will always come in at the downbeat of a bar, and if I hit the play button again, it will always come out or stop playing at the downbeat of a bar. So your drummer has a full bar to activate it and then deactivate it. And he can use a foot pedal, the SPDS, he can use whatever he wants. So, what do we have to do? We have to MIDI map this to something on our controller. All right, enter MIDI map mode, hit the controller, get out of MIDI map mode, and now using that one key on your keyboard, that one pad, or that one button on your loop to miss, I can bring in a tambo and take out the tambo whenever I want. Hit play, hit that key on my MIDI controller, it's in, downbeat of the measure, hit again, it's out at the downbeat of a measure. So that's using clips to spontaneously bring in and out things. And we can do that with anything. We can do that with tambo, we could do that with a pad. So if you like to bring in a pad at a certain time, we can do that. The only problem is it's going to cut out immediately. So just keep that in mind. If we want it to expire, we can kind of do a 2-pedal thing where we can have the beginning and have it loop, and then click on the next button, and it will finish out the clip. All right, so let's see another question. All right, let's see. Yeah, so the question is from Eduardo, is it better to work with session view or arrangement view with multi-tracks? I mean, I think I just made a pretty strong case for using session view. However, there are some pretty good reasons why we should use arrangement view. An arrangement view, we can see everything. We can see all the waveforms. We can see exactly where we are in the song. We can use locators to bounce around in songs, and we can MIDI map those locators. We can also do the same thing in session view. We just have to split them up into different scenes. So personally, I love session view for tracks because I can loop stuff in real time, like that percussion thing, that tambo. I can see more, and I can use my scene parameters, I can rename it to set the launch tempo or the time signature, and I don't have to write an automation to do that like I would in arrangement view. It's very fast, and actually, Live was made for session view. I mean, that's what it was made for. So it's very strong and it's very powerful with session view. So it just comes down to preference. Let's see here. Let's see here. What features have your laptop to play in live worship? What features have your laptop to play in live worship? I'm so sorry. I know I'm so sorry. If you could clarify that one. Are you asking what my like the specs of my laptop, like what you would recommend, what I would recommend as hardware for a live worship laptop? I'm guessing that might be what it is, but if you could just clarify, that'd be awesome. Yeah, so I would recommend a Mac, hands down, just for stability reasons, and then the ease of use. And as far as drivers, usually, this is my experience too. Drivers just seem to be a lot more easy to work with. You know, like I love Motu hardware because the drivers are completely stable as far as much as I've experienced. And you know, like if a cable gets wiggled and you plug it back in, it's not going to crash live or able to, you know, it's not going to do freaky stuff. You might drop audio, but it'll come back in. So anything made in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years will be able to handle playing stuff like this. If you're trying to use your laptop as a host for soft synths, you'll need something more recent. But this, just playing audio files off of a fast hard drive, is it's not taxing on the CPU very much at all. And with a solid state or a 7200 RPM hard drive, I mean, you'll have no problems. If you're trying to do off an external or a slower hard drive, you might run into problems. And one way you can tell, and I would say this is the only problem you would run into really when trying to do this, is this orange D coming on in the top right. And that just means that Live can't read the hard drive fast enough. So if you see that, it's either time to upgrade your hardware, upgrade your hard drive, or move that from, say, an external to an internal. Solid states are coming way down in price now, so I have in my laptop I've removed the optical drive on my MacBook Pro and put a giant 7200 RPM hard drive in its place. I think I have like, what is it, 300 gigs, 320, and then I have a solid state that runs all of my programs. So I have kind of a storage drive and then my fast application drive. And then of course, since I'm a keyboard player and I play soft synths live on stage, I have maxed out my RAM so it can hold all those samples. See, any other questions? Great. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I think that's about it. I hope this has helped you when it comes to running tracks live on stage and using Live in session view. I'll sign off, or I'll wait along maybe for like 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes to see if there are any more questions. I hope you guys have a great night. Thanks for stopping by.